Baroness Fox.
My Lords, it's a pleasure to follow the noble Lord Treesman, because actually that was a brilliant speech, and I found the speeches today humbling and articulate and wonderful, and you will know that I don't often start off my speeches in that manner. I just think somehow we've captured that this is not just a matter of words. There's something else going on. I hope that message comes through. So, my contribution. When I was a teenager, my working mother excitedly told me about the 1975 Employment Act, which introduced the first maternity leave legislation. She was thrilled that this would give myself and my two sisters choices about work, and it would change everything for future generations of women. And then in school, my radical English teacher enthusiastically showed me trade union and campaigning leaflets, and she proclaimed that maternity leave was a key step for women's equal employment rights. And her enthusiasm for political change was infectious, and I have to confess I caught the bug. Until then, we have to remember that every woman knew they could get sacked for getting pregnant and faced open discrimination, often relating to maternity. I suspect my mother and teacher would be delighted to know that things have improved so much for women that now we can focus on ensuring that women at the top of government will not be expected to resign because of pregnancy and will have 6 months' leave on full play. But as other noble lords have noted, this bill is rather narrowly focused on the women in Westminster, and I do rather wish that Parliament would show such speed and sense of urgency in tackling the ludicrously low statutory maternity pay and the weak employment protection for ordinary working women on maternity leave. But despite this, I see this bill as a step forward for women's rights. But of course, wait, because as we've heard from so many today, and the brilliant speeches, can we even claim, or can the government even claim, that it's a gain for women's rights, when the words women, she, her don't even appear once in the bill? We're assured that this is merely a technical drafting matter. If so, can the Minister organise an urgent review of official drafting guidance so we can explain that gender-neutral language is not appropriate for sex-specific issues? The noble Lord Randall of Uxbridge, says he doesn't see a problem with the language used. He implied that it was a bit like saying chairperson. But giving birth is not like chairing a meeting, and erasing women from public discourse on maternity is not ahead of the curve, it's regressive and demeaning. It isn't people who get pregnant, it's women. It's women who give birth. It's women who benefit from maternity leave. It's women's rights at work that we want to protect. Erase the word women, and the danger is we erase the struggle for women's rights that got us here. Of course, and I'd like to stress this, not all women want to be mothers. Not all women can be mothers, or even are good mothers. And child rearing is well and truly not, in my opinion, a mother's natural job. But the words woman and mother have specific meaning, and it horrified me that it's become so contentious to say so. So I've been gratified in this debate at how supportive people have been of the amendment. But if anything shows that this House is far removed from the rest of society, let me tell you, most of us would be cancelled if we said them anywhere else but in this House, because there is a toxic, nasty thrust of political life today. And I would like to acknowledge the courage of the noble lady, Baroness Noakes, and others for speaking out, because, as the noble Lord Hunt explained, people here will be labelled as TERFs and transphobics and go on hate lists for speaking out. That is the reality. So can I say to the government, please don't either be naive or disingenuous. These language rows are not technical issues. As so many people have articulated so passionately, we have to consider the political context. The day after the debate on the bill in the other place, I watched a male Labour MP on BBC Politics Live repeatedly and over refuse to say whether maternity law should refer to the pregnant person or woman. Why was it so hard for him to say that? And I'm not making a party political point, by the way. This is across the political spectrum that we see this. These new language codes and norms are mandating that we adopt doublespeak. Why am I told that I need to describe myself as cis woman? I'm a woman, that's it, enough. Not a uterus holder, not a person with a vagina, not a chest feeder. These are linguistic abominations, but they're not harmless. Ultimately, these body part descriptions demean women and are also a linguistic assault on the notion that biological sex exists at all. And there are consequences of this. For example, in medical challenges that are specific to biological females, how can care workers discuss the risks of mastitis infection if they have to replace breast with chest? We can see in other areas deemed technical just how language is being weaponised. You can't get more technical than the census. But as the noble Baroness Noakes noted, there is now a huge furore about the politicised wording of the questions in the census. The census is a hugely important inquiry to gather factual data and accurate statistics. But according to Dr. Debbie Hayton, a transgender woman, teacher and trade union officer, she rightly points out, quote, the gender identity lobby has been working hard to obfuscate the issue by mangling sex with gender identity. My lords, this place is not a student union. Yes, as we speak on too many campuses, mangling and obfuscating language and linguistic policing are being used often to undermine academic freedom and damage the reputation and smear feminist academics. And you should check out the new website GC Academia Network to read some horrifying tales. But in some ways we might expect this to go on in a student union. But I think it's much worse that this Parliament, which should not be like student politics, or even considering removing the word woman from this maternity bill. We here, and even more so in the other place, are answerable to millions and millions of women, men and transgender people. Note, transgender people as distinct from trans activist lobbyists. And those millions would expect, in plain language, that legislation that expands maternity leave would benefit women's equality. And I suspect those millions of citizens would be horrified to think that any part of our legislative body was enthralled to the small, if loud, lobbying organisations who, make no mistake, are using language as a battering ram to march through the institutions to eradicate the crucial distinction between biological sex and subjectively defined gender identity, and who bully and intimidate anyone who refuses to repeat the mandated correct terminology. So I urge the Minister not to let the absence of one key word betray the embryonic gains of that 1975 maternity leave legislation and the hopes of my mother and my teacher, and indeed my teenage self, that it would mean something for women's freedom. Don't betray us now.